It's a Dangerous Business Going Out Your Door by Jetfire. Chapter 5.
Sha-na-na-na-na-na-na-na, going on an adventure. Sha-na-na-na-na-na-na-na, going on an adventure.
Rainbow, what in tarnation are you doing? Applejack called up to her flying friend. They had been on the move for about 3 hours now, the ever-free forest passing swiftly around them. They were following a mostly clear road that had already taken them past Zikora's hut in the wild woods. They had then arrived at the river that cut through the forest and were now galloping on its right bank. They knew from studying a map that the river's headwaters were up in the Drakenridge Mountains, and by following it upstream they hoped to reach the mountains by nightfall.
Well, Pinky's not here, and some pony has to sing,
Dash said. No, some pony doesn't have to sing, the Earth Pony quickly replied. In fact, avoiding singing is one of the reasons I didn't want Pinkie Pie coming on this trip.
Aw, come on, AJ.
No, I'm putting my hoof down. No singing. Rainbow Dash was silent for a few moments.
Can I at least do the sha-na-nas?
No sha-na-nas. That'll just lead to more singing. The Pegasus passed a few more moments in silence. Finally, she said,
Well, can I at least hum?
Applejack glanced up at her friend and saw the innocent expression on her face. She knew better than to be fooled. Rainbow was hardly ever innocent, but couldn't deny the pout. I guess you can hum, she finally relented.
Yay!
Rainbow Dash cried. She immediately began humming the jaunty tune of the song she had just been singing. Applejack gritted her teeth and tried to block it out. This effort was not helped by Rarity, who moments later began humming the song herself, adding her smooth, dulcet hum to Dash's coarser one. It was one of the rare times Applejack wished she could walk on only 2 hooves, so the other 2 could be free to be stuffed into her ears. Rainbow Dash had been delighted to hear Rarity joining in with her humming. Looking down, she saw the white unicorn was also keeping pace with Applejack rather well. She was still bringing up the rear, but not far behind at all. In fact, she was right at Applejack's heels. They were actually moving fairly quickly.
Maybe we can make it in time after all, she thought.
Rope! Rarity collided with Applejack's hindquarters as the Earth Pony screeched to a sudden halt. Dash shot past them before coming to a hard stop and whirling around.
What? What is it? What is it? The Pegasus cried.
Confound it all, I knew I forgot something, Applejack cried, stomping her hoof angrily into the ground. I forgot to pack any rope. Rarity was rubbing her horn with her hoof. Is that all? She deadpanned. Oh, sure, y'all laugh, Applejack huffed. But rope's a right handy thing to have around. I'm already thinking of a dozen ways we'll probably need it.
Well, we can't go back, Dash said. We've got to keep going. Going back would waste too much time.
Applejack glanced back down the riverbank. She sighed. I suppose y'all are right, she resumed her previous gallop, but we're going to be sorry we don't have no rope, mark my words.
Sure, and when that time comes, yeah, we'll mark 'em,
Dash muttered, flapping her wings once more. As morning turned to afternoon, the ponies' stomachs began to churn. Rarity in particular was feeling hungry. Running was harder work than flying, and she was not as used to sustained physical exertion as Applejack. At her insistence, they stopped for lunch beside the river. Applejack opened her saddlebags and plucked out 3 apples, 2 of which she rolled across the grass to Rarity and Rainbow Dash.
That's it?
Dash said. That's all from the bag, said the Earth Pony, closing her saddlebag with a snap. We gotta make these apples last, so if you're hungrier for more, she lowered her head and bit up a chunk of grass, get to foraging. Rarity drew back in disgust. You mean eat raw grass? That hasn't even been seasoned. Don't you have some salt? Girl, I had a lot more important things to pack than salt, Applejack said. If you wanted salt, you should have packed it yourself.
Come on, Rares,
Dash said with a smile, chewing her grass with her mouth open.
It's spring. Everything's nice and juicy.
Ugh, the unicorn grumbled, taking out her sunglasses and using magic to place them on her face.
If you want, I can go pull off some leaves for you,
Dash offered.
They're really tasty.
No, Rarity muttered. She bent down and daintily took a bite of grass. She chewed it, wincing slightly at the strong, unrefined taste. She swallowed hard. It's quite bracing. Besides, the raw thing is so hip nowadays. She took another bite of grass, gritting her teeth. The things I do for friendship, she thought. Oh, Twilight, I do hope this is all worthwhile. They ate fairly quickly at Rainbow Dash's insistence. The rainbow-maned Pegasus was eager to remain on the move as much as possible. Rarity ate as much grass as she could stand before mercifully moving on to the much more appetizing apple. Applejack unceremoniously chomped her way through most of the grass around her. Dash ate some grass, then flew up to snip at some of the elm leaves hanging overhead. Applejack and Dash insisted that they not lounge, so the three ponies rose to their hooves and resumed their journey, causing Rarity to whine about the damage to her digestion. All the while, the Drakenridge Mountains loomed closer and closer over the tops of the trees, until their summits were no longer visible and they were merely a great wall of rock. By evening, the sun had already gone down beyond the mountains, casting the whole of the forest in rapidly deepening shadow. Their path was no longer level. They had begun to gently climb, and the odd boulder was now appearing, jutting out of the ground amidst the trees as they galloped past.
Hold it!
Rainbow Dash suddenly cried, causing Applejack and Rarity to screech to a halt. The two grounded ponies looked up at their flying companion, who was intently glancing skyward.
It's gonna rain, she said. We should probably camp for the night.
I didn't think there were any storms scheduled for this evening, Rarity remarked.
Everfree Forest, remember?
Dash said, flapping her wings gently as she descended to the ground.
The weather here makes itself.
Indeed, nothing in the Everfree Forest followed a schedule. Unlike every other part of Equestria, nature worked completely on its own in the wild green forest. Animals cared for themselves, weather systems formed on their own, and plants grew completely free of pony guidance. It was extremely strange, and one of the reasons why Ponyville was still considered a frontier town despite being centuries old. The forest was even older. It had been growing since the earliest days of Equestria, as far back as recorded history. To verify Dash's instincts, a distant rumble vibrated in Applejack's chest. Turning around, she could see a bank of dark clouds rolling toward them, flashing occasionally with brilliant white bursts of light. The wind was also picking up, the trees beginning to sway. "Oh, goodness! Let's please do get under cover before it starts raining," Rarity cried, stomping her hooves one after the other in quick succession. "Hold on, Sugar Cube," Applejack said, trotting off the path into the trees. "I've got a tarp in my saddlebag that we can sling over a branch. Of course, it sure would be nice if we had some rope."
Yeah,
Dash muttered, following her into the trees.
Look, there's lots of rocks around, she said, kicking at one near her hoof. We could just use those to secure the tarp. And the trees will block out a lot of the rain, right?
"I suppose so," Applejack admitted. She was now glancing up at the branches overhead, peering through the foliage, until she saw one that suited her. It was a long, thick branch that stuck nearly straight out from the tree it was attached to, and it was not too high off the ground. Pulling off her saddlebags, the orange earth pony yanked out a very, very thick roll of dark gray wool with a waxy exterior. She gripped one edge with her mouth and began to violently shake it, causing it to unfold, making it bigger and bigger with each swirl of her head. By the time it was fully unfurled, it was quite large. "Rarity," she called over her shoulder, her mouth still full of tarp. "Start grabbing some rocks with your magic, will you?" "All right," the white unicorn said primly, her horns shimmering as her telekinesis began to work. There was actually a plentiful amount of decent-sized rocks scattered through the trees, likely remnants from rock slides. Each one she saw, she raised into the air until she had more than a dozen floating around her. "Rainbow, you grab the other end of this here tarp and pull it over that tree branch," she said. "Sure," Dash cried, taking the end of the tarp opposite Applejack. She flapped her wings and raised it up into the air. The foliage around her was heavy, but she was able to maneuver herself up and over the thick tree branch. Applejack walked forward as the tarp was pulled, and soon it was forming a triangular open space, several feet wide and even more feet high. "Now, Rarity, put those rocks down and pin this sucker in place," said Applejack. Rarity easily complied, setting the rocks down in 2 neat rows, 1 on each side, 7 to a row. The unicorn suddenly felt a drop of water hit her horn. "And not a moment too soon," she said. Another raindrop came down, and then another, and water was falling rapidly from the sky. The 3 ponies quickly scurried under their makeshift shelter, the rain pattering down upon the oilskin surface. "So," Rarity began, as Applejack laid out one of her blankets on the ground, "tomorrow it's up the mountains, then?" "Hopefully we can make it over 'em in one day," Applejack said. "Or at least make it to the peaks in one day. I hope it won't be too snowy."
"At this time of year, there's definitely still going to be some snow,"
Rainbow Dash observed.
"I hope you ponies packed warm."
"Oh, no need to worry about that, dear Rainbow,"
Rarity said smugly.
"I'm more than adequately equipped to handle a little cold weather. But, Applejack, I hope you brought something more than just that hat."
"I've got my old quilted vest in here. That should be enough,"
said Applejack, patting her saddlebags.
"A vest? No, of course that's not going to be enough,"
Rarity said.
"I'll have to lend you one of my sweaters."
"I don't need no—"
"I insist,"
the unicorn said firmly. She looked over at Rainbow Dash.
"Although you don't even have anything packed."
"I'm perfectly fine," said Dash. "Pegasuses don't get cold."
"Pegasi,"
Rarity corrected her.
"Whatever."
"So,"
Applejack interrupted them pointedly,
"once we get over those mountains, what's next? What's on the other side?" "Some other place,"
Rainbow Dash said, rolling over onto her back.
"I've seen it a few times from the air. It looks like a big field of gold."
"Rarity, didn't Twilight give you that book about lands beyond Equestria?" Applejack asked.
"Ah, yes,"
the unicorn exclaimed. She used her magic to open her saddlebag and float the book through the air. Settling it down in front of her, she opened it to the table of contents. The book was rather short and was organized into 4 sections, each based on a compass direction.
"Let me see. We'll be crossing the western border, right?"
The other 2 nodded. Rarity flipped to the page where the west section started.
Everfree Forest, Drakenridge Mountains. Aha!
She cleared her throat.
Beyond the Drakenridge Mountains, Equestria is neighbored by the kingdom of Guilddale, a broad land of plains and grasses, inhabited by free-roaming bands of earth ponies. Equestria and Guilddale have long had cordial relations, including a treaty binding each country to come to the other's aid in the event of disaster. However, individual Dale ponies are often wary and suspicious of strangers, so travelers are advised to be cautious.
Applejack was grinning. "Land's sakes, a whole country full of earth ponies. That sounds like my kind of place."
"They certainly sound like a rough-and-tumble lot,"
Rarity said.
"What's this business about them being free-roaming? Do they not live in cities, I wonder?"
"I bet they just wander around wherever they want,"
said Rainbow Dash. She smiled, putting her hooves behind her head.
"No rules, no borders, no restrictions. A pony free to live off the land and be her own filly."
"Well, I hope they aren't that lackadaisy," Applejack said. "That might be a Pegasus's idea of a good life, but us earth ponies know the value of a little organization and hard work, and I reckon that's true even outside Equestria."
"These ponies don't sound like farmers, AJ,"
Dash said.
"They almost sound fierce, tough."
I wonder if we'll see any big, strapping stallions,"
Rarity remarked offhand.
"A bit of primitivism can be attractive in a man if he doesn't take himself too seriously."
"Okay, girls, let's not get too caught up," Applejack said.
"Remember, we're not going for a vacation. We've got to cross Guilddale as fast as we can to make it to the Archback Mountains. Rarity,
Does the book say anything about the mountains?
Rarity turned the pages with her magic, scanning them rapidly.
It doesn't seem to say so. I believe this book is concerned solely with the lands that border Equestria, not what borders those lands in turn. But the fact there's no mention of the mountains might imply that Gildale's borders don't extend all the way to them.
So we'd have to cross another different country? Dash said. That's just great.
Remember,
Rarity said,
we only have to get there in 2 weeks. Once we get to the mountains and find the flower, we can use Spike's fire to send it right back.
She used her magic to pluck the bottle of green and purple flames from her saddlebag. The magical fire flashed and shone. They had all agreed that Rarity should be the one to carry the dragon fire due to her skill at keeping track of minute details.
Be careful with that thing,
Applejack said. If we lose it or break the bottle, we are in a mess of manure. Just then the earth pony's stomach growled. I reckon it's time for dinner then. Rarity and Rainbow Dash chuckled. Applejack smiled and began to pluck apples from her saddlebags. After dinner, Applejack pulled out more blankets, and Rarity produced a pillow enchanted to conform to the shape of her head. Rainbow Dash opted to use one of the blankets as additional padding beneath her. She was unused to sleeping on the ground, and its hardness was unnerving and distracting. The Pegasus had chosen a spot near the entrance of the tarp, though far enough away to keep her out of the rain. Restless, she had trouble relaxing, so while Applejack and Rarity talked, of all things, about business, Applejack was discussing her family's plans for expanding the South Orchard at Sweet Apple Acres, she stared up at the storming sky. Suddenly, a long, jagged bolt of lightning lanced through the heavens, curling around a bank of clouds and turning the whole world blinding white. Rainbow Dash was entranced. She rose to her hooves without realizing it, causing the other 2 ponies to glance her way. "You all right, Rainbow?" Applejack asked.
What?
Dash remarked. She shook her head.
Oh, sorry, I'm fine.
You're not scared of lightning, are you?
Rarity said. Rainbow Dash gave her a strange look over her shoulder. She then looked at the ground.
You're scared of lightning?
Rarity said, incredulous.
Don't you Pegasus ponies fly around in storms and hurricanes all the time?
I'm not scared,
Dash cried. Her face switched from angry to uneasy, to bashful and more.
Lightning just makes me nervous is all.
Why? Applejack asked. Like Rarity said, Pegasus fly through storms all the time. Y'all control storms, right?
Well, sure, I'm totally cool with storms,
Dash quickly insisted.
Wind, clouds, rain, even tornadoes, they're no problem.
She glanced up at the storming heavens again.
But lightning, I can't.
Rarity murmured.
Dash wasn't looking at them.
Come on, spit it out, Applejack insisted.
I can't control lightning,
Dash said in one breath. She turned around, and they were surprised to see how sad she looked.
It's the one part of storms that I can't control.
Have you ever tried?
Rarity asked.
Oh, loads of times,
Dash said, finally laying back down.
There are some really slick weather ponies that can buck lightning bolts with their back legs. I've sort of tried that before.
She set her head down in the blanket.
But every time I try, the lightning just feels so wild. It's hot and fast and bright. And I can never be fast enough to control it no matter how fast I fly. I just wind up getting close to it and it nearly fries my tail off.
She sighed. She looked truly miserable.
I'm a failure as a Pegasus.
Rarity and Applejack regarded her silently. Finally, the orange earth pony said, Don't get upset, Sugar Cube. There's plenty of stuff lots of ponies can't do. Shucks, I can't shear sheep.
I'm an awful tennis player,
Rarity offered brightly. Applejack arched an eyebrow at her.
Well, I am. I've never been able to get the hang of an overhand serve.
Look, I'm tired, gals.
Dash said, turning away from them.
Can we just go to sleep?
Mighty fine idea, Applejack said. We gotta get up early tomorrow if we want to make it over the mountain by nightfall. Snuggling under her blanket, she yawned and laid her head back on her saddlebags. Sweet dreams, every pony. Rarity pulled on a sleeping mask and tucked the blanket around her before gently slipping into the covers and laying her head on her pillow. She was the first to fall asleep, breathing softly within minutes. She had had a very long and hard day. Applejack followed shortly after her, snoring gently within a half an hour. Rainbow Dash remained awake, tossing and turning on top of the blankets. She rolled herself up in her own blanket, wrapped like a spring roll, but she still couldn't sleep. She was thinking about lightning. She'd thought about it countless times before over the years, and always the same frustration bubbled in her mind.
What exactly did I do wrong?
She wondered. Every other aspect of weather, rain, wind, snow, clouds, bent to her will as it did for every other Pegasus. Yet lightning remained beyond her reach, and it tore at her. Not all the time, it wasn't an obsession, but when she did think about it, she thought hard, because she wanted to master lightning. Lightning reminded her of herself. It was fierce, and fast, and wild, and powerful. Lightning was what she wanted to be like, so why couldn't she control it?
Is it because I'm not fast enough?
She thought.
Am I not fierce enough? Am I not strong enough? Am I just not as good as her?
Dash, as previously mentioned, was not given to self-doubt, but she was not immune to it either. Her doubts, once stirred, would linger, as they lingered now, following her to sleep where her dreams were filled with the flash of lightning and the sound of pealing thunder. She was chasing some pony through the air, the flash of an electric blue tail mingling with the blinding bolts in the stormy sky.